you can do is just tell the truth and trust in the American people that over time they're going to know what the truth is.
Yes, it is time for the truth. Right here, right now. This is the Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives. With your host, John Matthews.
The latter-day prophet. Baying against the hypocrisies of our time.
And Joe Hakos.
You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
The Conservative Syndicate is comprised of some of the most informed pundits and activists available today. Together, we seek to tear down the imaginary wall, a separation between church and state through education, information, and engagement on the religion of politics and the politics of religion. And now, your host on the globally syndicated Conservative Syndicate, John Matthews and Joe Hakos.
Hey, and how are we doing out there all across this great land of ours and around the world? It is that time once again, the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. And I'm your host, John Matthews, mad prophet of the airways, on a mission from God. And that mission is to tear down that imaginary wall of separation between church and state. You know, it's something that I'm getting even more inspired to do each and every show, is to tear down this imaginary wall. I'm seeing more and more crap surfacing every single day about our Constitution and what it means and what it doesn't mean and how it's being reinterpreted and deconstructed and redefined, and it just gets my goat. One of the things we're going to talk about today is a ruling that came out of the Supreme Court regarding redistricting, and we're going to talk about that a little bit today. It's just one of those things. They're using the 14th Amendment to vilify or to say that people, Ruth Ginsburg, the 82-year-old souse that still sits out there up there on the bench, saying that citizens, there are people that reside in the state illegally, still have rights of representation even if they don't have rights to vote. And that's what the argument was. And, of course, good old Supreme Court Justice John Roberts cited whether the only dissenting views came from Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito, and we're going to talk about those because they were taken to task today in the liberal media circles. I'm going to talk about a couple things I saw out there today, so we'll get that. You know, there are other things going on in this country right now besides the posting of people's wives and accusations of scandals and even email compromises and stuff. But there is some real stuff taking place right now. I mean, not that anything else out there is not real, but I don't know about you. It's getting very repetitious, very repetitious. I'm actually out looking every day for something else to talk about. That's how repetitious it's getting. So having said that, let me bring in my good buddy here, co-host Joe Hakos, 2 days in a row. How you doing, Joe?
Jeez. It was a rough one, but I'm here. Yeah, and repetitious. Oh, my goodness, John. You know, I went on, I turned on the television like 3 times today, and each time I turned it on, I went to the Donald Trump campaign channel, and there he was. It's like, wow. Of course, you know I'm talking about Fox News. It was ridiculous. I was like, wow. I don't know how much, you know, he ought to be thanking the stars for Fox, because every time you turn it on, it's Donald Trump is doing something. They actually had him interviewed today in a diner talking to voters. It was like, and I'm like, okay, well, where are the other 2 guys that are running? You couldn't get a hold of them? Again, it's ridiculous, and it is monotonous, and it's out of your mind. It makes you out of your mind. And I turned it off and went back, and lo and behold, there it was again. It was Donald Trump again. I was like, you know, it's like, wow, it's just meant to be that Donald Trump was going to be on the television when I turned it on. That's ridiculous. I just had to get that off of me, because it was just like, it's just something you observed it. And that's something I observed today, and it was just absolutely mind-boggling that wow, this guy's on that news channel getting campaign ads basically,
right,
for nothing, and they don't bother to show. Now, if they show the other candidates, now fine, all fine and dandy, it'd be great, but they don't bother doing that.
Yeah,
they'll give them 15 seconds, and it'll be something that's obviously not going to put either one of the other candidates in a good light.
Well, you know, you hit the nail on the head. That's one of the things that's been bugging me. I turned on TV last night. I have actually over the last couple of weeks been watching the Kelly File pretty consistently. And the only reason I've been doing it is because she really nailed down the only format I really have liked during this entire campaign season. She takes these candidates and she puts them in a room one-on-one with her and with about 30 other people. The Frank Lund's support groups kind of thing.
Yeah.
And she lets the group ask the questions. And then the candidates, if they start to dance off and the little talking points and stuff, she brings them right back. And she did that. And I thought, you know what? We don't need debates anymore if we do stuff like this. And so what's happening is Hannity caught on to it. And last night when I turned it on, Hannity was on. And it was an interview in Wisconsin with Donald Trump and Melania Trump.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was like, I don't know why did Donald Trump have to bring his wife on the stage? I mean, this woman, she's not.
I'll tell you why.
Yeah,
I can tell you why.
Why?
Because he's not popular with the female voter because of all the misogynistic things he said about women. So he figures he brings his wife out here, makes him more of, hey, look, I've got a wife. How can I hate women?
Yeah.
It's the same. When did you stop kicking your dog kind of routine?
Well, it was almost the entire interview. The part of it I watched about 20 minutes of it. The entire interview was about this Michelle Fields, the reporter that filed the charges against the campaign manager of Trump. And I'm like, you know what? This is so yesterday crap, but this is getting to be so much like Hannity. Just he's getting into the minor stuff, majoring in the minor stuff, and I don't know what happened to the issues, and they're not talking about that stuff. Although I don't think at this point they need to talk about anything. I'm like, these guys spit this stuff out. I bet you they recite it in their sleep. It's like
they're mumbling and mumbling their sleep. Donald.
Yeah. How many times can you ask the same question over and over? And so I think Hannity was going back to this. He kept dancing back to this, saying, well, Melania, what do you think about the charges of sexism against you? Like she's going to give you any other answer than my trophy husband here is the greatest guy in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, come on, man. Do something else. Talk about something else. Let's get over this crap.
Yeah, why don't we talk about the fact that DOD employees and civilians in Turkey have been made to leave because the situation in Turkey has gotten so bad that there's a threat to their safety to be in that country. Why don't we talk about stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm still waiting to hear from Obama about the massacre on Easter of the 65 Christians in Pakistan.
Oh, they're Christians, John.
Yeah, and I posted that out there. I said, here it is. There was one article about it on the day after Easter. And I'm thinking, you're not going to hear. I mean, we haven't even heard anything from the candidates on this. And nobody's talking about this. But we're all concerned about whether ISIS is out there beheading Muslims. It's like, who cares? If you can't even have, there's no moments of silence. There's no Obama denouncing the ISIS or anything like that. There's no, let's not get in a hurry to stereotype people and blah, blah. There was nothing. Just crickets. And I'm thinking, okay, this is the kind of stuff. And then today I hear Obama out there talking about the wackiness of Donald Trump's Mexican wall thing, right? And I'm thinking, to listen to this guy, why is this guy getting airtime? I mean, what do we need to hear from Obama? Like Obama's going to get up and say, "Oh yeah, well, that's kind of an idea. Maybe we need to look at." No, he's not going to do that. Why even give the guy the airtime? I mean, it's like, so what? Hit the cassette recorder, rewind, and play the same crap that we hear all the time when this guy talks. Why are we wasting our time having to look at and listen to people like this? He's on his way out, for crying out loud. He's heading for world domination up the UN. Who cares what he thinks about the wall in Mexico? So it's
the make-believe wall, as a matter of fact. I mean, for crying out loud, nobody's ever explained it as to how it's going to happen. It's just going to happen, and we're going to get sick and tired of being great.
Yeah, we're gonna have so many jobs it's going to hurt. And I'm like, okay, I'm still waiting for you to tell me how that's going to happen. The only closest I've come to is the wall's going to be built because we're going to withhold money that we're supposed to be sending to Mexico because they owe us $58 million or $58 billion, whatever the amount. I think it's $58 million. It might be $58 billion. Who the hell cares? In pesos, that's a lot. But it's like he's going to withhold sending money to Mexico.
Oh, my.
And we're going to redirect that money to building the wall. And I'm like, yeah, like that's going to happen. You know, this is the other side of this thing. Nobody wants to talk about the fact that one man sitting in the White House, I don't care who it is, or one woman, isn't going to solve anything when you've got a Congress that just wants to do nothing.
Yeah.
You know, that nobody's paying any attention to that. None of these guys are going to get in there, and as Dennis Miller once said, they get to pinch the tit of the Roswell dummy, and then they get the book on how screwed up it really is.
Yeah.
And that's how it's going to come down.
And there's a subject right there, John. There are congressional races out there, Senate and the House, that need to be, we need to start looking at. And if your congressman or senator hasn't done the job they should have or said they were going to do, it's time to get rid of that individual.
That's right. That's right.
And so it's so much other stuff going on, but all we hear about is, oh, Donald and his hair and Ted the liar and Kasich, some guy from Ohio who shouldn't be in the race anymore.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm almost at the place where I'm like, okay, this is what I want to see on Hannity tonight. I want to see a montage of Melania Trump. Okay, now that's just, might as well throw it up there. Let's take the time to do that. Okay, I'd rather look at that than to listen to these people talk about absolutely nothing. We've gained nothing out of these last 29 conversations. Aren't going to get anything else out of the rest of the time. And that's just where we're at. Hey, guys, we got to go to our first break here. When we get back, we'll get into today's festivities. We'll talk about the Supreme Court ruling. And I want to get back on this thing about the narrative, about what's going on, about what the media is playing out there right now. I scored an article today that you'll love. It just epitomizes the idiocy of today's media pundit. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. Don't go away. You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. And then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-790-5960. That's 1-800-790-5960. Again, 1-800-790-5960. Call now.
Prices are for base buildings only. May not be available in some areas. Attention business owners, do you want a stimulus package that really works? Before you spend thousands of dollars more than you should on your next building project, listen to this. General Steel has a stimulus package designed to help you save as much as half the cost of conventional construction on your next building. As much as half. That's right. General Steel can save you thousands of dollars with a pre-engineered steel building designed for your business or church. How about a 50 by 100 foot building for under $30,000? So don't pay thousands more than you should without calling General Steel first and save as much as half the cost and time of conventional construction. With the projected demand for steel in Japan and China, prices may be skyrocketing.
877-927-3360. 877-927-3360. 877-927-3360.
Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification require. Cancellation fee, auto pay, and paperless billing and other restrictions apply. If you can't see the difference, why pay the difference? Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Only Dish brings you the best in entertainment for less than $20 a month. Cut the cable and don't get directed. Switch to Dish because at just $19.99, Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. It's so simple. The same channels cost less with Dish. So since you can't see the difference, don't pay the difference. Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Get premium movie channels free for 3 months, starting at just $19.99. Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. Call now to save with Dish. Dial 1-800-600-1645. That's 1-800-600-1645. The same channels for less than $20 a month. Dish. Call 1-800-600-1645 for details.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardosa. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardosa Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosalive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosalive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
We are back, and you are listening to the Conservative Syndicate. I'm your host, John Matthews, and we're glad to have you with, along with my co-host, Joe Hakos. And Joe is back with us again. Like I said, second day in a row. We'll see how long he lasts here. He's on the road to recovery, and I understand bad back and a dentist trip today. I wouldn't want to be you today for nothing.
It was exciting. That's a descriptive term, yeah. But no, they did what they needed to do. It's just long overdue. But it was like, wow, oh man, what am I? Because the wife made me the appointment, and I was like, what are you doing? I said, you know, I said I'll try.
Yeah.
And they worked with me. So it was all good.
Well, it's like
nothing bad. I can't. I'm not going to dog out the dentist. And the people there. They did wonderful stuff, and just wow.
Well, they have such
much right now.
They have such great numbing stuff in the dentist. It's like, hey, punch some of that in my back, huh?
They should. Yeah, they didn't use any of that. That would have been awesome, man. But John, I can't stay at the dentist office. Somehow I got to get out of there, go home.
I often think about the time the worst car accident I ever had went back in Pennsylvania when I was in the Navy. I had a little Corvair, and being from California, I knew nothing about black ice. And I hit this patch of black ice and spun around, hit a telephone pole, spun around again, and ended up hitting a Cadillac head-on coming the other way. And my car was entirely destroyed with the exception of the very spot I was sitting in. And but I was paralyzed for like 3 days.
Oh.
And they gave me this combination of Valium and Darvon. And I remember the doctor walking in going, how you feeling? I go, I hurt like hell, but I don't give a damn. It's so yeah. Pain is not fun. Pain is not fun.
No, and hopefully it'll go away. It's all good. It's all good. But small steps. But unlike small steps, it's like the Supreme Court doing that thing in Texas. And I don't know if it would have changed if we'd had another member there.
Well, this got me thinking, and maybe we can take this discussion in this direction. This got me thinking as I was looking at it. The argument was the dissenting judges was Sam Alito and Clarence Thomas. And I'll get into a little more detail about what Clarence Thomas wrote, because his dissent is the one that the media is just grabbing a hold of, because they're using it to once again talk about how the 14th Amendment covers these people. The 14th Amendment covers people that are not citizens of the United States, and they're not getting fair representation. That's how out of whack we've gotten with the redefining of our Constitution.
My understanding is your representation is in the country you came from. That's the reason why you have embassies in foreign countries.
Yeah, and I'm in the process of doing some research here so that I can sound somewhat intelligent. Maybe we need to get like Chris Ann Hall on here one day and talk about this thing, but it's gotten to this is the argument that was presented by Ginsburg, is that these people deserve representation even though they're not citizens, that kind of thing. So I'm thinking, okay, that's fine. But it got me thinking in the bigger picture. When we think about some of the things that have occurred since our framers first put together the Constitution, and the 14th Amendment is one of those things that has allowed the Constitution to be interpreted as a breathing document. It changes with the social environment. The 14th Amendment now protects homosexuals. They are a demographic or a dynamic out there that needs to be protected by the 14th Amendment, meaning due process, meaning Christian bakers need to bake cakes for them, and Christian florists need to send flowers to their wedding, that kind of stuff. That's the kind of representation that they're talking about here. And then I thought about, that took me to the next thing, the 17th Amendment, which is the change of state legislators appointing senators to popular vote, electing senators by popular vote. And I got to thinking, if these two things were back the way they originally were intended, we didn't have the 17th Amendment, and the 14th Amendment was actually interpreted the way it was supposed to be,
yes,
that allowed blacks who were born in the country to vote, and that's really the only reason it was written, and that kind of thing, and it didn't apply to...
It was written because Democrats in the South didn't want blacks to vote.
Right, exactly. And that leads into the whole history of the Democrat Party, which has been rewritten. And what they've done is everywhere there's a Democrat in there, as far as the KKK, the forming of the KKK, the opposition to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, all these things that were done by Democrats, that somebody went in the history books and whited out Democrat and put in Republican. And so everything has been twisted and skewed that it's the Republicans that want to oppress the black community, and it's the Republicans that want to get rid of all the Muslims, and it's the Republicans that don't like illegal immigrants. Hell, the establishment, if anything else, the Republican establishment has benefited from illegal immigration more than anybody, because a lot of these people are the money people. They're running these corporations, which is why immigration got broken in the first place. But it has to do with, the left wants the voters and the right wants the labor, that kind of thing. So, there's arguments for all that. But back to what I'm saying here is this idea that what we need to do is we need to go back and look at this thing from the perspective of how these two minor changes, well, not minor changes, but these two changes to our Constitution, these two amendments, the 14th Amendment, which has been redefined as it was originally intended, it was a good amendment. The 17th Amendment totally shouldn't be here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those two things alone have helped reshape the narrative that we always talk about, and is what people use to fuel the progressive agenda. How the progressive agenda, if we went back to one person, one vote, and we went back to appointing senators through state legislators rather than through popular vote, I bet you a lot of this stuff would fix itself.
Yeah, exactly. Well, a lot of this stuff would have never happened. I mean, we'd never had a John McCain in office for 29 years. We wouldn't have had a Harry Reid in office for 29 years. A lot of these things would have never happened. So that being said, you can't. But yes, a lot of these things would change. But now that the genie's out of the bottle, do you ever think that they're ever going to go ahead and vote against themselves?
Yeah. It would take. Amendment. You know, one of the other things that while I'm thinking about it, this thought just flashed up in my head today. I was getting some of the feedback I'm getting from people this morning as I was looking over my Facebook posts and my Twitter posts and emails and stuff that I get. The idea, there are a lot of people out there right now, and I would say most of them that I've been talking to are Trump supporters. Even some of these people, we normally would have called them conservatives. These are people that, before Trump came in the election, I used to have conservative dialogue with all the time, and it was all about limited government and things of that nature, things that actually deal with conservatism in our platform. Now when I'm hearing, the Trump thing has set everything else into motion, let's burn the house down, is kind of the attitude of these people. But I'm starting to get feedback from some of these people that are Trump supporters, and they're talking about this idea of the brokered convention or contested convention, stuff like this. And they're basically saying at this point in time, they think everything is lost. It's done. It's not going to matter whether Trump gets elected or not. It's not going to matter whether we have a brokered convention or not. But the general attitude is from these people that I'm starting to hear, I don't know how big that perception is, but I'm hearing it from people that Trump has, I guess he brought something into the dialogue or the conversation, but it has peaked out. And now even the people that were once ignited and excited and ready to go and ready to fight for the republic and everything else are now just saying, you know what, it's pretty much over. It doesn't even matter anymore who wins. Doesn't even matter what's going on out there. That's a sad state of affairs, don't you think?
That's very sad. And sounds like classic burnout to me. And okay, fine, but that doesn't mean you give up. I mean, that's what the progressives want. They want conservatism to just give up. They want to kill it, so it's never around again. And they want to stop it. And if we don't stop them this time, I don't. If we get God forbid we get a Hillary Clinton in there, which I don't understand how that's going to work, or even a Bernie. To watch these people actually campaigning for Bernie Sanders, I just don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I could just see this happening if this election happened in 1948.
Yeah.
How the hell does this happen in our nation?
Yeah, that's a good point. You think about in 1948, 3 years after World War II, the country is rebuilding. Roosevelt has pretty much got his the beginning of the New Deal going. We got Social Security established and everything else. And you would have thought, that would have been the perfect time for somebody like Norman Thomas, who ran against Roosevelt in his last term and lost. But you would think, that would have been a pretty good time to put something out there because of the effects of the war on the economy. I mean, it definitely brought us out of the depression. The war industry, the war machine was very good economically for the country. But you would have thought the ideologies that were floating around in those days would have been prime atmosphere to bring in something like socialism.
Well, they did do that. They did that in Britain. I mean, they defeated Churchill. After the war was over, the socialists took over the British government and ran it into the ground, and Churchill got reelected again. But, it's amazing how, and a lot of this, I think, is media-driven. A lot of this is totally media-driven. It's unbelievable how that, and people aren't, the one thing not being able to do the show and being in the state I was in, I was able to peruse and look at the what was on the networks, and it is a very, very sad state that we are in. It's just unbelievable the level of corruption and incompetence, and a lack of effort that the media puts forth day after day, month after month. It's just ridiculous how poor our media has become. It's just basically turn it off.
Yeah.
Just turn it off. You're better off turning it off.
Yeah. I know. It resurrects those thoughts that I used to. I always go back to this. I imagine, I'll be humorous about this just for a second. I imagine when I get to heaven, Howard Beale is going to be the guy that greets me at the gate. And this idea, I remember that.
You have to be angry, John.
Well, I just remember him, in that movie, just telling people, here's a guy, like the number one show in the world at that time, and he's telling people, turn your TV sets off.
Yeah.
Quit buying into this garbage. Turn it off. So, that's what it is. Hey, look, we got to go to a break. When we come back, we'll continue here. I'm going to get into some of the details here with this Supreme Court ruling that came down the pipe today. So stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. Don't go away. You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification require. Cancellation fee, auto pay, and paperless billing and other restrictions apply. If you can't see the difference, why pay the difference? Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Only Dish brings you the best in entertainment for less than $20 a month. Cut the cable and don't get directed. Switch to Dish because at just $19.99, Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. It's so simple. The same channels cost less with Dish. So since you can't see the difference, don't pay the difference. Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Get premium movie channels free for 3 months, starting at just $19.99. Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. Call now to save with Dish. Dial 1-800-600-1645. That's 1-800-600-1645. The same channels for less than $20 a month. Dish. Call 1-800-600-1645 for details.
Attention taxpayers! If you've received a notice from the IRS or state, do not ignore it. It's also a big mistake to try and handle your tax problem on your own. If you owe back taxes, it's a fact that the government has the power to take everything you own, including your home, business, wages, savings, and your freedom. But here's the good news. There's a special toll-free tax hotline set up especially for you. This tax hotline will tell you about new programs that are geared to help you dramatically settle, reduce, or eliminate what you owe. But you have to call now. Take down this number or put it in your cell phone. But call 866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959. When you call, you get free information on how you can reduce or eliminate back taxes, including penalties and interest. You can also be helped if you have unfiled returns, a tax lien, wage garnishment, bank levy, or if you've been entered into a payment plan but can't make the payments. Don't make the big mistake in thinking you can ignore or handle your tax problem on your own. You can stop the collection process immediately. Call this special tax hotline today for free info at 1-866-761-0959. That's 1-866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959.
Term life insurance. It can be a powerful way to protect your assets and your family. You work hard to earn and save your money to build a nest egg for the future. Don't let it get wiped out because you didn't plan ahead. Take the time now and make a small investment in $500,000 or more in quality term life insurance. Call the Term Lifeline and let us shop the best companies to give you the lowest rates. We specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. Ask about some of our 10 and 20-year fixed rate plans with guaranteed rates. Call the Term Lifeline right now for your free insurance quote. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609. You owe it to yourself to protect your family and your assets. Make term life insurance part of that plan. Call the Term Lifeline right now. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosalive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosalive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Okay, hey, we are back, and you are listening to the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. We do want to encourage you to go out and visit our website, theconservativesyndicate.net. When you get a chance, catch this show, any of our shows, find out about our panel, our Conservative Syndicate panel, blogs, everything that pertains to what we do, and that is to educate, inform, and well, I guess we don't do that anymore. Educate, inform, and engage you, our audience. And I've got Joe Hickos with me, my co-host.
What aren't we doing anymore?
Yeah, well, I'm getting so discombobulated with all the narratives that are out there today and all the talk and everything. Some days my head shakes like a bobblehead doll, and I find myself sitting there talking. And then I've actually had to go back and listen to my own archives here a couple times. What was I saying when I was really talking about that? You know, sometimes the mind just goes into overdrive, it just goes on the autopilot kind of thing. I want to make sure I'm not out there telling everybody, hey, burn the house down, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, burn the house down. But, hey, if you're going to burn the house down, get out first.
Yeah.
Have some place to be. Yeah. And I don't think these people realize this when they burn the house down thing. It's like, well, where else are you going to go?
Yeah.
What are you going to do when the house is burned down?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I guess that's why I keep sticking at it. A couple of weeks ago, I'll be honest with Joe, I was inches from just packing it in and just saying hell with it. When Ted Cruz took on the Bush endorsements and the Romney endorsements and the Lindsey Graham, and I thought, okay, I gave that up. That really bugged me, but I thought, you can't really choose who endorses you. But then he brought on Neil Bush onto his finance team, and that really set me off. I'm like, okay, what are you going to do now, Ted, if you win and the Bushes throw Common Core back on your desk? How are you going to deal with that? I had a real issue with that, and for me, it just came down to the Supreme Court justice appointment or nominee. And Cruz is the only guy I trust to put the right person up there. So that's why, I'll stick with it through this because of this. And
see, John, you went and you looked at the bigger picture. That's pretty awesome, and that's what I like. You looked at the bigger picture, and you went, wow, this is what we need to do, because when it comes to the Supreme Court, that's generational. That's a couple generations
right.
The way it's been going. I don't know. Eventually, we're going to have just glass jars with their heads up on the bench, I guess.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, well, keep their brains in a jar, right?
Yeah. But it's seriously, it is that important. That's when it comes down to it, that is one of the most important points of this election.
Yeah, well, the way I see it is, it's the most important. Because, like I said, if somebody like a Clinton gets in there, or even somebody like Kasich, or Trump, we don't know which way Trump is going to go with this thing.
Well, that's the problem with Trump. You don't trust him. You don't know the guy enough because, every time he says something, if someone disagrees with it, he backpedals or he's got a surrogate out there saying, well, that's not what he meant to say, which is the same kind of crap they do for Clinton.
Yeah,
that's what she meant to say.
Yeah. Well, see, my thing is this. I'm of the firm belief that if Trump gets elected, if he does make it through all this and he ends up the top dog, that he'll focus on the jobs and he'll focus on the wall and things like that. But in terms of the things that really, in my opinion, matter in terms of preservation of the republic, and that are the moral issues, I think he'll go completely liberal on that because it doesn't mean anything to him.
Yeah.
He doesn't, he's okay. I'm listening to him on Hannity last night. I'm pro-life. I'm pro-life. Hannity's bobbing his head like a bobblehead doll. And I'm like, when did you become pro-life, Trump? When did you become pro-life? Nobody's even asked him about the homosexual issue. I've never heard anybody ask him about that. And I'm thinking, here's a guy that hired Perez Hilton to run his beauty pageants, Mr. Gay himself. So I'm saying, no, this guy will just toss aside any regard for what conservatives want. He'll give that up. That's how he'll moderate. That's how he'll make his deals. We'll make these deals with the economy. In exchange for that, I'll give you a liberal Supreme Court justice so you guys can continue to harvest baby organs and marry your horses and do everything else that you want to do out there. The sexual side of it, here's a guy who's got, 3 wives, and I'm not condemning that. I have had 3 wives myself. But I don't have trophy wife. I'm not out there I don't pick my wife based on what she looks like in front of a camera. It makes me look like a stud, that kind of stuff. So, I'm not worried about the size of my hands, if I can put it that way. So anyway, but it does, the Supreme Court thing is, to me, the issue. Because if we lose the bench, it's all over. There's nothing we're going to be able to do to stop anything that these people want to do.
Well, the Second Amendment will be gone. The First Amendment will be gone. It'll be like, no, you can't say that. It'll be like they're doing in Germany right now. They'll censor your. That's hate speech. You can't do that. If you talk against the government policy, we can't have you do that. We're going to fine you or do whatever. I mean, it's just, and with healthcare, you don't get healthcare, they fine you. Right. For crying out loud, if you don't get healthcare insurance, the government fines you. It's it's a tax. I don't care what it is. They confiscate your hard-earned cash.
Right. And what happens with the government if you don't do what they want? Do they? Well, I guess if you have no property, you don't have to worry about the government confiscating it. But where this all leads to eventually is to Bernie Sanders. What happens is everybody ends up working for the state just so you could survive. That's where it goes. That's why I was laughing. I got a nice chuckle out of Barack Obama down there in Cuba talking about the fact that because, look at America. Democracy's messy, but look where we're at here. Look how far we've progressed. We've got 2 Cubans running against the legacy of a black president, and the next candidate or the next president could be a woman or a Democratic socialist. And I'm sitting there going, dude, we've already got the Democratic Socialist. Go look in the mirror. You are that guy. But you've done a good job of hiding it from the public because the public doesn't really want to know. We're in this massive stage of denial, or we are into an idiocracy. It's got to be one or the other.
Grouperized.
Yeah.
We've been grouperized already. We're too damn stupid to know any better.
Yeah.
Okay, gee. But I think the fact is, and John, I'd like to just thank you for what you've been doing. I don't say this enough. So, folks, John, the dedication it takes to do the show and everything, I just appreciate John out here doing what he's doing. And just want to say thanks again. And that's part of the reason why, John, that we haven't hit the President Camacho, whatever that guy's name was, Mountain Dew. We're not quite there yet, but we could be damn close if we're not really careful. Yeah. It's coming, man. There's these people out here just when they're asked questions about why do you like Bernie Sanders, they can't answer a question. Why are you protesting Donald Trump? Well, because because someone gave me this neat sign that they made.
Yeah. Well, I was listening to the Black Lives Matter people after all the ruckus that was going on down there in the last few Trump rallies, Chicago, St. Louis, stuff like that. And Megyn Kelly had a couple of the guys that helped organize in Chicago from Black Lives Matter. She had them on the show. And, of course, they're like, okay, Donald Trump's racist. He's against blacks, homosexuals, and Muslims, blah, blah, blah. And Kelly asked him, she goes, well, can you tell me anything that he said about blacks? I haven't heard anything. Can you tell me what that is? Neither one of them could tell him. What has he said about homosexuals? I haven't heard anything. And I'm like, she did a good job of confronting him. Of course, it didn't really make any difference because, they're right and everybody else is wrong just because they're right and everybody else is wrong kind of thing, So that's what it is. But back to this Supreme Court thing here. We got just a couple minutes. We'll kind of break into it. And then we will get into this in detail. I promise you. I got to keep reminding people there's a method to my madness. Sometimes we have to go a long way to get to the main point of what we're trying to say here. Basically what this was a case of a conservative activist. That's the way the media is referring to it as, a conservative activist who went and filed a lawsuit and said basically that the districts are being drawn illegally because they're including people who are not in the country legally.
Yes.
And that was the general premise.
And this is in Texas, by the way.
Right, in Texas. And the idea is, or the claim is that it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way. People that are not here legally should not be counted when it comes to drawing districts, because the district somewhere, and this is what I'm going to look up here. I'm going to look up when this started, because it didn't used to be this way. It used to be one person, one vote, and somewhere somebody decided we need to draw districts. Now, I'm going to do some research on that. I'm just breaking the surface of it today. So this is what the argument was, and this is what the case was about. The Supreme Court came back and ruled 6-2, because we still have one guy out. The bench is empty right now.
Unbelievable number there, 6-2.
6-2. John Roberts and Anthony Kennedy both sided with the liberals on the court and basically said that the states don't have to change, that they don't have to change. And a lot of their foundation is based on the fact that, in terms of like John Roberts and Kennedy, is that they've been doing this way for so long, why change it now? That's basically what it was. There's no need to, because it's been so good and so effective.
Seriously, if had that happened, then slavery would still be legal then, because we've been doing it for so long, and it's been so effective and useful for those that have slaves. So we're just not going to change it. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So it's gerrymandering is a good thing. It's a good thing, I guess. So hey, we got to do our short break here. We'll come back and we'll get more into this. Yeah, just stick with me, guys. There is a method to our madness. Stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Term life insurance. It can be a powerful way to protect your assets and your family. You work hard to earn and save your money to build a nest egg for the future. Don't let it get wiped out because you didn't plan ahead. Take the time now and make a small investment in $500,000 or more in quality term life insurance. Call the Term Lifeline and let us shop the best companies to give you the lowest rates. We specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. Ask about some of our 10 and 20-year fixed rate plans with guaranteed rates. Call the Term Lifeline right now for your free insurance quote. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609. You owe it to yourself to protect your family and your assets. Make term life insurance part of that plan. Call the Term Lifeline right now. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did. Hey, we're back, and you are listening to the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. I'm your host, John Matthews, along with my co-host, Joe Hakos, and we're talking about the situation here with the Supreme Court ruling on the case down in Texas. It was Evanwell versus Abbott. Evan Well is a conservative activist down in Texas, and he wanted to change the rules governing legislative redistricting in a way that would, in the words of the liberal media, I want you to pay attention to the words. We talk about liberal doublespeak here all the time. It says here, he wanted to change the rules governing legislative redistricting in a way that would hurt many Latino communities and benefit many white communities. This effort failed, with all 8 justices rejecting this attempt to change the rules. Now, apparently all 8 said, yeah, they shouldn't change, but there were dissents that were entered by Sam Alito and Clarence Thomas. Now, let's go with the one writing the opinion for the court. That was Justice Ruth, 2 glasses of wine is my limit, Bader Ginsburg. And in her opinion, she writes here that they put aside the question of whether states could choose to use measures of registered voters when line drawing and to what extent they could do so. So what the claim by Mr. Evanwell was that the district should be drawn proportionally by the number of registered voters in that district and not by population. And because the population in a community down in some place like Texas or out here in California or Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, where we get the brunt end of this stuff, or if you go up north, maybe up in the areas of Detroit and then places like that where the Muslim community is en masse, but we're talking mostly about the illegal immigration people coming up from the south. And what we're talking about here is that this man's saying that really people that are here and residing in the state of Texas illegally should not be considered in the lines of how the districts are drawn. And we know that this is what, when you hear the phrase gerrymandering, this is what it is. And out here in California, it has worked so well, it's nearly impossible, even if we got a conservative governor out here. If the heavens split and something came down and happened and we got a really conservative governor out here, it would be of very little use because the assembly out here is so skewed now to the left because they've redrawn all these districts, and every time they do it, they add another Democrat to the assembly. It doesn't work the other way around. I think the charges down in your neck of the woods, Joe, is that the Republicans are being accused of doing this, of gerrymandering districts to keep Democrats. But then again, we've had on the show here, Glo Smith, her district was redrawn. Alan West lost his position or his place in the House because Wasserman Schultz was able to get his district redrawn. So that's the idea. The intent is to redraw the districts, in the words of Ginsburg, to protect the minorities from being overrun or overruled on everything that goes on. So you have something you want to say?
It's just the gerrymandering part is, it goes. Each of these parties is going to do it. They both cry foul when they're not the ones doing it. The fact that they went to the Supreme Court on this and they ruled that the 14th Amendment, these people have some sort of stand-in to be represented by a part of the American government when they're not citizens is mind-boggling to me. I don't understand how they can get to that point. You want representation when you're in a foreign land. That's what you have your embassy for.
Right.
That's where your representation's at. And you go to your embassy for those rights and protections that you have. And that your embassy will fight for you for whatever it is that you need to be fought for.
Right.
And these people, since they're illegal, well, they certainly can't go to the Mexican embassy in Houston or wherever the hell they want to go. They're lawbreakers.
Right.
Again, it's illegal.
Yeah.
Again, we're fighting over illegal, not immigration itself, the illegal part of it.
Right. Let me read the 4 short paragraphs here to really kind of give you an overview.
Cool.
We'll do that, and then we'll go into more detail in terms of Clarence Thomas's dissent. Maybe we'll get to that in the second hour here, but here it is. Inwin L. versus Abbott, was an effort by a leading conservative activist to change the rules governing legislative redistricting in a way that would hurt many Latino communities and benefit many white communities. This effort failed, with all 8 justices rejecting this attempt to change the rules. The High Court held that states can rely on broad measures of population when setting district boundaries and need not to take into account how many eligible voters live in each district. The result is that states can stick with maps that give greater representation to areas with large concentrations of foreign nationals, children, or prisoners, an arrangement that experts say tends to benefit Democrats due to the demographics of their base. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, in an opinion joined by the court's other liberals as well as Chief Justice John Roberts and Justice Anthony Kennedy, explicitly put aside the question of whether states could choose to use measures of registered voters when line drawing and to what extent they could do so. However, the High Court said states are not obliged to consider the count of voters in order to comply with the one person, one vote principle derived from the Constitution. Adopting voter-eligible apportionment as constitutional command would upset a well-functioning approach to districting that all 50 states and countless local jurisdictions have followed for decades, even centuries. Appellants have shown no reason for the court to disturb this long-standing use of total population. Ginsburg also said there were many strong reasons to base districts on overall population. Here's where it gets nasty. Non-voters have an important stake in many policy debates. Children, their parents, even their grandparents, for example, have a stake in a strong public education system and in receiving constituent services such as help navigating public benefits bureaucracies. By ensuring that each representative is subject to requests and suggestions from the same number of constituents, total population apportionment promotes equitable and effective representation. And let me sum that up in a few words here. Illegals have the rights of citizens that live here, and they are policies that are decisions that are made affect them, and so therefore they should have a voice, even if they don't have a voice. They don't have a legal voice, but they have a voice. That's really what that is. That's what she's saying here. That we're gonna hurt the children. We're gonna hurt the grandparents. The human shields. These people don't have a voice in everything or anything that's going on, and therefore we should keep the well-functioning borders or process by which borders are assigned because it works so well.
Yes. The status quo should be exactly the way it is because it's been working so well. This is exactly why this election is so damn important, because Ruth Bader Ginsburg, has politicized this point right here to say, oh, it's for the children, it's for the grandparents, because if we don't include them, we won't be able to hold that carrot, that federal government money carrot out there. You won't get a piece of the pie because you weren't represented. You weren't counted to be represented.
Right. Yeah. So the idea here is if they're not represented in the manner that is being presently used, meaning the drawing of district lines by population rather than by ability or the legality of being able to vote, then the people that are voting can affect policies that would disenfranchise these people that are not eligible to vote. That's kind of what she's saying here. And rather than this feeds right back into this thing that illegal immigrants have rights.
Yeah, it's madness.
Yeah.
It is absolute madness. Citizens that can vote have less rights than those that can't.
Yeah. And eventually, this 14th Amendment is going to be stretched out to the point where what it's going to be is everybody has the right to do something unless you're unless you're white. That's really where we're going here, and I hate to put it in racial terms like that, but that's where it's going, because this is the process that the liberals are using to basically replace the population.
Well, that's what they said. They didn't say, oh, these poor white neighborhoods. They said Latinos and minority neighborhoods.
Right.
They said it in the article. They said it.
Yeah, and they said it in the ruling. We got to go. It's the top of the hour here. We got to go. It's time for the Edwards Notebook. We'll pay some bills, and then we'll be right back. Stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. Don't go away.
When I was a little boy growing up in Cleveland, my dad often talked about loyalty to family and loyalty to country. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards on today's page from the Edwards Notebook. If there are inner squabbles within a family or nation, the last thing a family leader like a dad or president of a nation should ever do is publicly proclaim that they welcome criticism from one of their biggest enemies. But that is exactly what President Obama did during his visit to Cuba. To quote Mr. Obama, quote, I actually welcome President Castro commenting on areas he feels we are falling short. Unquote. I find this totally not right, considering that Cuban leaders are brutes who lock up citizens for going to church and have totally decimated the Cuban economy. Obama doesn't need any help in ruining the U.S. economy, by the way. Besides, Cuban leaders annually school Congressional Black Caucus members on how to dismantle American life through disruption and deception. Mr. Obama's faulty judgment is a sad reflection of the bad judgment that American voters made in the last presidential election. Prayerfully, the next choice made for U.S. president will actually benefit our republic, who, for starters, would be loyal to America. I'm Ron Edwards.
Catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. Then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-790-5960. That's 1-800-790-5960. Again, 1-800-790-5960. Call now.
Prices are for base buildings only. May not be available in some areas. Attention business owners, do you want a stimulus package that really works? Before you spend thousands of dollars more than you should on your next building project, listen to this. General Steel has a stimulus package designed to help you save as much as half the cost of conventional construction on your next building. As much as half. That's right, General Steel can save you thousands of dollars with a pre-engineered steel building designed for your business or church. How about a 50 by 100 foot building for under $30,000? So don't pay thousands more than you should without calling General Steel first and save as much as half the cost and time of conventional construction. With the projected demand for steel in Japan and China, prices may be skyrocketing.
877-927-3360. 877-927-3360. 877-927-3360.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardosa. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardosa Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosalive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosalive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did.
Hey, all you can do is just tell the truth and trust in the American people that over time they're going to know what the truth is.
Yes, it is time for the truth. Right here, right now. This is the Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives. With your host, John Matthews.
It's a latter-day prophet, weighing against the hypocrisies of our time.
And Joe Hakos.
You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
The Conservative Syndicate is comprised of some of the most informed pundits and activists available today. Together, we seek to tear down the imaginary wall, a separation between church and state through education, information, and engagement on the religion of politics and the politics of religion. And now, your host on the globally syndicated Conservative Syndicate, John Matthews and Joe Hakos.
And welcome back. Hour two of the Conservative Syndicate coming to you live right now. Coast to coast, nationally acclaimed, globally syndicated, the Conservative Syndicate. We seek to tear down the imaginary wall of separation of church and state, and we do it by educating, informing, and engaging you, our listening audience. And glad to have you with us this afternoon. Joe is bowed out for the rest of the show. He's coming back, a little bit at a time here. And he was able to get through the first hour yesterday, the first hour today, but he is rehabilitating his back and it had to go lay down. So we'll get him back on the air hopefully tomorrow, and then by maybe next week or so, we'll have him up to full steam and ready to go. So anyway, a lot of different things going out there, and I want to get back on this topic here of the Supreme Court before we dance into anything else. As I said before the hour ended, last hour, talking about the ruling by the Supreme Court on the redistricting down in Texas that was brought before the courts. The idea being that the thought is that voters should be the determining factor when drawing district lines, not the actual population. When you come in to some of these states like California, Nevada to some degree, New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, we are overrun by illegals. Florida has their own issues down there. Illegal immigration is something that affects the entire country. But when we talk about what's coming up from the South, these are the states that get hit the hardest. We're just inundated with these people. They drain our resources. They make it just literally very difficult sometimes to do things out here in California. And you'll know it if anybody who's ever been out here in California had to go into an emergency room in a hospital, you'll understand what I'm talking about. You walk into any emergency room of any major hospital in any area, any metropolitan area out here in California, and you will notice right away the influx or the just saturation of illegals sitting in the emergency rooms. They bring their kids in, they have fevers, they come into the emergency room. They're just all over the place. And the sad part of it is, as somebody who considers himself somewhat compassionate, I can understand, the need to take care of your child. If your child is sick and you don't have any other way of taking care of it, then, hey, yeah, you got to do what you got to do. The point being is, what are you doing here in the first place? That's the issue. What are you doing here in the first place? And the reason, well, of course, you're here because you can't get work where you live. You can't get work where you're at, and so you come up here, and you just, and that is the argument. That is the leftist argument with illegal immigration. These people are just trying to take care of their families. Well, that's fine. They are just trying to take care of their families, but they're still breaking the law. And if you start rationalizing and justifying the breaking of any law just because of some emotional tug, some emotional string to compassion and humanity and everything else. Well, look where it gets us. Look where it gets us. We now have an attorney general that is sending out directives to municipalities and states throughout the country, telling them not to enforce the law with people that are too poor to pay the fines. We covered that on the show here. This is where it goes. And this is where it goes where we see communities up in Michigan where there's some very large Muslim communities where there are city councils up there now saying they want to integrate or adopt certain aspects of Sharia law to pander to the demographic that lives in that city, that municipality. So what happens is this stuff seeps in little by little. The left uses it to pander to voting demographics and voting blocks. And as we've always seen, sooner or later, it begins to expand. It begins to expand. You take the rise of Barack Obama. There's a perfect example of what happens. The guy starts out as a community organizer in the south side of Chicago. What do they begin with? They begin talking to schools. They want schools. They want the names changed in schools, okay? Or they want new schools. Where the overcrowding. Why? Because of illegals. Okay, there's overcrowding, so we want new schools. And by the way, we want those new schools to reflect the diversity of our neighborhoods. So we want them named after Mexican radicals. And this is how Obama got his start: community organizing with school districts. And then from there, it went up into the state politics. From there, it went into the Senate, the U.S. Senate, and from there to the presidency. And all this guy's done since he's been president is try to take this same application of ideology of compassion and humanity and all these other things and use it to his advantage to bully people into giving people what they want, their voters what they want. And that keeps them in power. It's not because they're so compassionate about these people. It's because of the power attached to it. Now, you can argue motivation all day long. It's that these demographics that the left uses are basically people that are exploited by the very people pretending to care about them for the purpose of amassing power and wealth. Redistribution of wealth on a massive scale called creative destruction. The redistribution of wealth from one class to another. You create a new class and you basically steal all the money from the rich and give it to that class, and they become the new money. Okay? You just take the old money and you give it to somebody else so they have new money. It's still about power. It's still about wealth. It's all this. The name of the game is the same no matter what. Okay? No matter who's playing it and for what reason. That is the reason. The amassing of power and wealth to control. All right, now, back to the ruling here. I'm going to read it, and then we're going to get into the dissent a little bit here. Oh, I'm in my short break here. Got to take a break. Doggone it. I got to take a break here. Stay with us, right? We'll be right back. Stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification require cancellation fee, auto pay, and paperless billing and other restrictions apply. If you can't see the difference, why pay the difference? Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Only Dish brings you the best in entertainment for less than $20 a month. Cut the cable and don't get directed. Switch to Dish because at just $19.99, Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. It's so simple. The same channels cost less with Dish. So since you can't see the difference, don't pay the difference. Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Get premium movie channels free for 3 months, starting at just $19.99. Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. Call now to save with Dish. Dial 1-800-600-1645. That's 1-800-600-1645. The same channels for less than $20 a month. Dish. Call 1-800-600-1645 for details.
Attention taxpayers! If you've received a notice from the IRS or state, do not ignore it. It's also a big mistake to try and handle your tax problem on your own. If you owe back taxes, it's a fact that the government has the power to take everything you own, including your home, business, wages, savings, and your freedom. But here's the good news. There's a special toll-free tax hotline set up especially for you. This tax hotline will tell you about new programs that are geared to help you dramatically settle, reduce, or eliminate what you owe. But you have to call now. Take down this number or put it in your cell phone. But call 866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959. When you call, you get free information on how you can reduce or eliminate back taxes, including penalties and interest. You can also be helped if you have unfiled returns, a tax lien, wage garnishment, bank levy, or if you've been entered into a payment plan but can't make the payments. Don't make the big mistake in thinking you can ignore or handle your tax problem on your own. You can stop the collection process immediately. Call this special tax hotline today for free info at 1-866-761-0959. That's 1-866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959.
Read something recently worth thinking about.
It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
All right, hey, we are back. You're listening to the Conservative Syndicate. I'm your host, John Matthews, and I want to once again just encourage you to visit our website. We have a lot of resources there, a lot of shows. We cover a lot of topics, and we exhaust topics on this show. We don't just give you the 5-minute commentary on a 30-second soundbite. We take issues like this issue we're talking about today, redistricting. I'm starting to do some research on this. I may spend an entire show just talking about the history of redistricting and how this fits into the progressive agenda, how it's been used and abused and exploited for the purpose of deconstructing and redefining our Constitution and what it means. It all fits into the big picture. Redistricting is one element of what we face today from the progressive avalanche, and it ties in with the 14th Amendment. That is the argument that came from the Supreme Court, that apparently the 14th Amendment includes people who are here illegally, when in fact what it is the 14th Amendment talks about being who the citizens are people based on the jurisdiction that you're under. And if you're an illegal immigrant here and you're coming up here from Mexico, or you're coming in from Syria, or any of those countries over there, or if you're coming in from France, it doesn't make any difference where you're coming in from. You're under the jurisdiction of that government. And just because you're sitting or laying or working on American soil doesn't mean you're under American jurisdiction. But that is the way the 14th Amendment is being broadly applied now. I've heard so many arguments about the homosexual activism based on the 14th Amendment, that they are now their own entity in terms of due process of law and everything else that goes on along these lines, okay? Due process of law. If an illegal immigrant is caught doing something here, they should be deported. That should be due process of law, not giving them a public defender and then trying to determine whether or not they've broken any laws. They've broken laws by being here illegally. Everything else should be irrelevant at that point, but it's not. And so that's what this redistricting ruling by Ginsburg, her ruling, she wrote for the opinion for the siding with this measure. Now, I'm going to read this over to you again, only from Ginsburg argument, and then I want to get into the dissent that was offered by Sam Alito and Clarence Thomas in particular. Ruth Bader Ginsburg said basically that adopting voter-eligible apportionment as constitutional command would upset a well-functioning approach to districting that all 50 states and countless local jurisdictions have followed for decades, even centuries. Appellants have shown no reason for the court to disturb this long-standing use of total population. So what Ginsburg is saying is the people that filed this, Mr. Evanwell, did not have enough evidence or did not sway the court in his argument that districts should be drawn on the number of registered voters in that district rather than the total population of that district, which includes, to a large degree, illegals, foreigners who are here illegally. She went on to say that there is there's strong reasons to base districts on the overall population. One, non-voters have an important stake in many policy debates. Children and their parents. Well, if their parents aren't registered to vote, that's their problem. But what she's referring to here is children and the parents of children who are here illegally. So you can band them all together. You say children do not have any right in anything, and that would be children across the board. But when she says their parents, what she's saying is children and the parents of these children that are here illegally and even the grandparents who are here illegally, for example, have a stake in strong public education system. People that are here illegally have a stake in the public education system. Why? Because leftists believe that even if you're here illegally, you're entitled to a public education. You're entitled to attend public school even if you're here illegally. And there should be no questions about that, because that's a humane thing to do. That's the compassionate thing to do. They're receiving constituent services. That would be welfare, food stamps, Medicaid or Medicare, whatever it is they give them, Medi-Cal, whatever it is respective states give in terms of assistance in medical care. So all these people have been able to obtain all these services, but they're here illegally. And Ginsburg's argument basically is they have a right to that. They have a right to that. Why? Based on the 14th Amendment. Being able to navigate through these public benefit bureaucracies, meaning that they need representation in terms of getting these benefits that they're here illegally getting. So by ensuring that each representative is subject to requests and suggestions from the same number of constituents, total population apportionment promotes equitable and effective representation. Meaning that's what it's saying. They are treated equal, and they can receive equal representation even though they're not here legally. Now, Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas wrote a dissenting opinion, but apparently they sided with the court in terms of not wanting to rock the boat. That's basically it. But they did write opinions. And Alito basically said the court's majority made an error by suggesting that the Constitution, meaning the 14th Amendment, leans toward use of total population, and he gives this counter-argument. House seats are allocated that way. So what they're saying is, what the ruling by Ginsburg is, the opinion written by Ginsburg is this. Well, the House of Representatives is based on total population. The number of people that are portioned in the House of Representatives is based on the total population. So Ginsburg's saying, since we select our House of Representatives based on the number of House of Representatives based on total population, then it only makes sense that districts should also be drawn based on that same total population. But Alito notes that, well, in the Senate, that's not the case. In the Senate, every state gets 2 senators, period, regardless of population. And some of the states get greater weight on a per capita basis because every state is guaranteed at least 1 House seat. So some states wouldn't have a population meet the minimum requirement, whatever that is. And if we're going to argue that, I guess I could throw it out there. Why don't we have representatives in the House for Puerto Rico and what's the other one out there? What's the other one we just did? They just did primaries down there. Puerto Rico was one of them. And there's one other territory that we have that actually got to vote, actually had primaries to elect the nominee for the Democrat and Republican Party. So, but the point being is that Alito's saying what you're doing is you're picking one specific aspect, the House being chosen, House representatives being chosen by the total population, and you're saying that this should justify the drawing of districts by that same population, which leads into our argument that means that everybody gets fair representation, fair access to the system, entitlements, and all that other stuff, even if they're here illegally. Well, my argument would be, well, if the House is apportioned to total population, then illegals shouldn't be counted in that apportionment either. That would be my argument. If you are not here legally, then you should not be entitled or benefit from anything that happens in this country if you're not a legal citizen, period. And yet we group it under that banner of compassion and humanity, and it's basically, well, they're here anyway. That's really the argument. They're here anyway. Well, if you took all these things away, they would find someplace else to go and let somebody else deal with it. Because what it's doing is it's bringing this racial, cultural division into the country when combined with the other racial and cultural issues that we already have. is igniting this vitriol that's out there, this hatred that we have based on our ideologies and our beliefs. And it trumps anything else that's out there. And so what we have is we just have these constant political divides, and that is the strategy of the left, is divide and conquer. A house divided against itself will not stand. And so the idea is that let's just keep pitching these things at each other. Let's bring these ideologies and these agendas and all these issues and keep throwing them at each other. And what happens is, at one point in time, one of two things is going to happen. One side is just going to be worn down and just throw their hands up. It's all over. That's what the left is hoping. They just wear us down. They just wear us down. Or there's going to be some type of very massive, violent push back. And that could lead to things like a civil war, race riots, cultural riots, whatever you want to call it, whatever, however that pans out. I hope it never comes to that, but who knows? Who knows where we're going down the road here. So now, Clarence Thomas offered a different view. He says that states should have a much broader power to draw legislative lines as they choose, even if doing so would produce grossly undemocratic results. See, here's the issue here. The issue is republicanism versus democracy. Many Americans have yet to come to an understanding of the difference between republicanism and democracy. And a lot of people just use the words interchangeably. If you're on the left, you very seldom refer to this country as a republic. If you're on the right, you may use it, but you also intertwine it, and you have a tendency to define it within the same context as a republic. Republic and democracy are not the same thing. A democracy is basically rule by the mob. That is what we have been. That's what we've been inundated here, especially in the last 8 years. Is this idea that the mob determines, and it's not even the majority; it's the mob, the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. The people that are out there, the demographics, the homosexual community, about 1% of the population. And yet they control the dialogue. They control the narrative. Why? Because they are the mob. We have 13% of the population is a black community. I believe it's about the same as 11% Hispanic community, right? They are minorities in terms of numbers, but they are the mob because they're making the most noise. And that's what democracy is. Democracy is the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Because what you really have in a democracy at the top of the heap is a benevolent dictator. Somebody this is the Bernie Sanders concept. This is the idea of democratic socialism. You're going to have that top dog at the top listening to the mob and determining, based on the requests and demands of the mob, what the majority has to do. How the majority is going to be shaped, what the majority has to sacrifice in order to pander to and quiet the screaming, whining, bitching, moaning, and groaning of the mob. That's what democracy is. When you hear that word democracy, just think of the word the mob. The mob, the people that are out there in the streets screaming and protesting, we're being treated unfair. We need representation. We need money. We need benefits. We need everything that the majority has. We need everything that everybody else has acquired and worked for in this country, because we feel like we're being slighted. We feel like we're being cheated. We feel like we should have the same opportunity and entitlements, even though we're here illegally. Even though we should have the same education, even though we don't go to school. That's the biggest problem in the black community. It's not that their schools are run down and that they're bad. It's that they don't go. Why don't they go? Because they don't need to go. They've been taught. This is a generational thing. They've been taught it doesn't matter. You get welfare. You get food stamps. Now, I know I'm generalizing. And I know by doing that, I always come under attack. Well, you're just putting everybody into one basket. I'm talking about the overall perception that we have based on the mob. Think about this. You got a college campus out there being overrun with Black Lives Matter activists. And what happens? Everybody says, the media starts to play this game, that this is a widely held majority opinion type thing. Blacks are being mistreated. They're being disenfranchised from the voting booth because people are requiring voter ID. And this is the majority of America side with this and believe with this. The majority of America believe that abortion is okay. The majority of America believes that same-sex marriage is okay, when that's not the case. But yet if that is pointed out to them, then all of a sudden we become the ones that are prejudiced and racist. If we're saying, no, this is a small group of people, this is the democracy, the mob, making all this noise, and we're just going to disregard it because that's not what the majority of people think in this country. But yet, so they play it both ways. When they're voicing their opinion, they're the majority. But when you start throwing numbers at them and saying, no, you're not actually the majority, then, oh, no, you're disenfranchising us. And now we get into these arguments about being represented legally and everything else. I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes some sense here. But we're at the bottom of the hour here. It's time for Moments of Madness. Stay with us. We'll be right back in a few moments. Hey, on Moments of Madness. The recent violence that has begun to appear across the country at Donald Trump rallies underscores the truth embedded in the old adage, those who failed to learn from history are too often the idiots that blindly repeat it. Beginning with the removal of Black Lives Matter activists in Georgia, who may have, in all fairness, just wanted to stand silently in protest during Trump's speech, to the sucker punching of a protester being removed for disrupting Trump's speech in North Carolina by a Willie Nelson-looking cowboy, to the 37 arrests for assault, including a very bloody protester in St. Louis, to the nearly riotous outbursts in Chicago that led to the hospitalization of several attendees, among them a MoveOn.org organizer. These series of incidences resurrect for those of us old to remember the 1968 Democratic National Convention. The 68 Democratic Convention was a brokered convention brought about by Lyndon Johnson declining to run for re-election, along with the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy within a month of each other. Kennedy was running a close second to then Vice President Hubert Humphrey, who had garnered establishment delegates outside traditional primary protocol. Humphrey was the establishment choice. Kennedy, an anti-Vietnam supporter, the people's savior. Also present at the 68 convention was the anti-establishment movement Youth International Party, known as YIPPY, led by Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin, and the National Mobilization Committee to End the War in Vietnam, called MOBI, led by David Dellinger. Over the course of 4 days, violence routinely erupted on the streets of Chicago, resulting in 589 arrests, 119 and 100 injuries to police and protesters, respectively, and the death of a 17-year-old stopped for a curfew violation who pulled a weapon and fired upon officers. Here's the madness. Parallels between the 68 convention and what we see playing out today are more than eerie. For instance, there is once again the prospect of a DNC brokered convention, this time to ensure an establishment nominee wins with superdelegates should the current frontrunner with more than a shady past be indicted. Her opponent is a populist socialist lauded by the college crowd who feels the burn. Just as chilling is the even more serious prospect of a GOP brokered convention to stop a populist who refuses to play by establishment rules and in doing so has captured demographics establishment candidates can only dream of. Following the 68 convention, another radical group formed at Ann Arbor, Michigan by Students for a Democratic Society called SDS. Founded by a radicalized Bill Ayers, the Weather Underground capitalized on the anti-Vietnam movement and the rise of the Black Panthers. The Weathermen, as they came to be called, participated in bombings of police stations and government installations like the Pentagon, along with riots that coincided with the trial of the Chicago 7, those who had been arrested on conspiracy charges the year before during the 68 Democratic Convention. Today, college campuses across the country have their own underground. Black Lives Matter. Many of them who are being trained by MoveOn.org, who we now see showing up in larger and larger number at Trump rallies. The only impartiality they display is the fact they squeeze in an occasional Clinton event on their quest to whine and moan about their identity dilemma. And who do these self-proclaimed disenfranchised college youths look for inspiration? None other than Bernie Sanders, self-avowed democratic socialist who spews forth his own revolutionary rhetoric of government overthrow through redistribution economics. Yes, the parallels are as uncanny as they are eerie. Even more frightening, though, is the prospect this time around. While everyone acknowledges the inmates are running the asylum, no one in charge seems to care enough to put any of them back in their straitjackets. My guess is they just want to watch history repeat itself. Unfortunately, there are enough idiots running the streets to make it so. This is John Matthews for Moments of Madness. You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Term life insurance. It can be a powerful way to protect your assets and your family. You work hard to earn and save your money to build a nest egg for the future. Don't let it get wiped out because you didn't plan ahead. Take the time now and make a small investment in $500,000 or more in quality term life insurance. Call the Term Lifeline and let us shop the best companies to give you the lowest rates. We specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. Ask about some of our 10 and 20-year fixed rate plans with guaranteed rates. Call the Term Lifeline right now for your free insurance quote. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609. You owe it to yourself to protect your family and your assets. Make term life insurance part of that plan. Call the Term Lifeline right now. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did. Hey, we're back, and you are listening to the Conservative Syndicate, Real Conservative Talk from Real Conservatives. I want to get right back into this while all the information is fresh in my head here. I'm talking at this point about Clarence Thomas's opinion written in the recent, or the Supreme Court ruling that just came down about redistricting. And the plaintiff on this, Mr. Evanwell, wrote and filed a lawsuit that ended up in front of the Supreme Court, went through the lower courts, got up in front of the Supreme Court, and basically what he's saying is that districts should be drawn based on the number of registered voters in a district or an area rather than the actual total population of that district. The left is out there arguing that is that is what disenfranchises people. People that are here illegally are not properly represented, or people that are not registered to vote are not properly represented. Even if you don't exercise your duty as a citizen to vote in elections and to engage in the conversation that shape the policies that affect our lives, you still need to be represented. And I'll buy that part of the argument. But I will not buy the argument that says people that are here illegally have a right to determine what policy affects them. That this is not the way it is. And I'm going to give you a little history of this. Clarence Thomas writes down that the court has never provided a sound basis for the one person, one vote principle, meaning the court has never really even taken on this issue. And the writer of this particular article that I'm reading, this is out of Think Progress, a very leftist slant magazine, is basically saying that if it is allowed, if districts are allowed to be drawn by the number of voters rather than the total population, that this is equal to or akin to how Russia handles things. Now, I don't know how people come up with those analogies, because in Russia, I don't even know if they're allowed to vote anymore. I guess they do, but we all know how those elections are going to turn out before they even take place, because people know they don't have to worry about districts. They have the bullet theory. You vote for who we want, or, you're one bullet kind of thing. Anyway, Thomas is saying that the states should return to the old way of doing things. And from what I'm reading in this article so far, somewhere in the 60s, the great 60s, when we got into the New Deal, that was Roosevelt, when we got into the Great Frontier, what was it? The New Society, that was it, Lyndon Johnson's campaign, the New Society. And he started taking on all these issues in terms of making everything equal, level the playing field and everything. We got the Civil Rights Act out of that era, which was good. There's nothing wrong with that. But Thomas is arguing that states should be allowed to apportion it to be one vote in part of a state counted only a little more than 2% as much as vote in a different part of the state. And now the whole idea here, and this is how our government was set up, if we take it from the national level down, the House of Representatives was based on the idea of the population of the state. But one of the dangers in that is that if a state more populous than another state could control the entire agenda for the country. And so that's what the Senate was for. The Senate had 2 seats apiece in the framing, in the establishment of our republic. Those senators were chosen by the legislators in the state, not the House of Representatives, but the legislators within the respective states. So this is how it went. The only direct election that the people actually participated in was electing their House of Representatives. Based on the population, they had so many seats, and the people were allowed to elect who they wanted to the House of Representatives. The state legislators chose senators and put the senators in there, and that was your check and balance. You couldn't have one state overpower everybody else because everything had to go through the Senate. The Senate had to vote on it, and then it would have to either be amended if it didn't pass or whatever. But it would pass from the House to the Senate. If there were amendments made in the Senate, it would have to go back and pass through the House again. So senators were not elected by the general public. They were chosen by state legislators who were elected by the general public, and the House of Representatives who were elected by the general public. Even in those days, the president was not elected in a general election. He was after the first election. What ended up happening is and I'll have to check the facts on this, but that's where the Electoral College came in at. The number of electoral votes depending on the population of the state and how many of those votes went towards the president. But we, over time, I guess in the 60s, and I'm sure with the president earlier than that, we got into this saying where the general public votes for everybody. And the only thing that remains unaffected by the general public is the Supreme Court, which is a nomination process from the president and then goes to the Senate. And the Senate is supposed to be representative of the state legislation in the respective states. But that's not necessarily the case anymore because now everything is done by popular vote. But anyway, what Thomas is saying is it should go back to that where it is, even if it's disproportionate, even if you have one district that has more voters in it than another, that's the way it should be. Or let's say less voters than population. I'm sorry, and correct myself here. That should be the case because it is the voters, it is the citizens, those are the people that should help determine and shape the policy that affects the rest of that respective state. So Thomas's argument is basically we need to put the power back into the hands of the state, and we need the federal government to quit trying to get in there and interject and cause and support this gerrymandering. This is the big argument that's coming out of the left right now, is the Supreme Court ruled against the process of redrawing districts at a time during the Civil Rights Act era, they decided that in order to make sure that states, especially in the South, could not obstruct and hinder blacks from voting, that if they were going to redraw districts, they had to go through federal approval. And the Supreme Court, it's funny that the Supreme Court would knock that down and say, we no longer need that, but yet turn right around here and basically support the idea, the very same idea, by saying, no, the states can do what they want, or the districts need to be drawn by population, that kind of thing. So it's kind of contradictory there, but it's a little deep for me. I'm still sorting some of this stuff out, so be patient with me. I might even be saying a couple of things that I'll have to correct later on. But anyway, Thomas notes that the original Constitution permitted only the direct election of representatives, meaning state legislators and House of Representatives. Senators in the present were selected indirectly. That was through the representatives that were appointed by state legislators. Okay, state legislators chose the Senate, that kind of thing. The Great Compromise, which is what we're referring to here, guaranteed large and small states voting equality in the Senate. The conservative justice is correct that the original Constitution was anti-democratic. See, that's the catchphrase there. What Thomas is saying is the Constitution is an anti-democratic document. So what the left? What do we hear from the left all the time? It's about democracy. It's about the mob. It's about the squeaky wheel. Thomas is saying, no, the Constitution was not written to be democratic. It was written to be Republican. It was written to represent the Republican idea or ideology. And what was the Republican ideology? Is that each individual, through their own moral capacity, fed into the collective, and through that collective, moral representatives were chosen that would sustain the republic. They would be represented, but they would allow the lawmakers that they elected and chose and appointed to maintain the moral fiber of the Constitution in order to keep peace and order throughout the nation. That is really what it's about. What it is today, it's the mob, the squeaky wheel, the immoral, the godless are the ones running the show because they make the most noise. And now all these representatives that used to be selected are now voted for, and who they voted for by? They're voted by the godless. We have a 50-50 majority pretty much in this country one way or the other. And that's why we're always in these arguments. And that's why most of the stuff is ending up in front of the Supreme Court. And now with the Supreme Court that wants to legislate from the bench, this is what we get. These are the types of rulings that we get. We got to go to our last break for the day. We'll be right back. Stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Prices are for base buildings only. May not be available in some areas. Attention business owners, do you want a stimulus package that really works? Before you spend thousands of dollars more than you should on your next building project, listen to this. General Steel has a stimulus package designed to help you save as much as half the cost of conventional construction on your next building. As much as half. That's right, General Steel can save you thousands of dollars with a pre-engineered steel building designed for your business or church. How about a 50 by 100 foot building for under $30,000? So don't pay thousands more than you should without calling General Steel first and save as much as half the cost and time of conventional construction. With the projected demand for steel in Japan and China, prices may be skyrocketing.
877-927-3360. 877-927-3360. 877-927-3360.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosalive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosalive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did. Hey, we're back. This is the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk for real conservatives. We're glad you took the time to join us, and I know, conversations like this can really kind of bog your mind down some. We throw this information out there, and we're trying to do it in a short period of time. That's why I constantly revisit topics. You may not get it the first time around. I seldom get things the first time around. I have to rehash. I have to go back. I see something. I got to research that, look it up, and I'm sure you're the same way. But I'm giving you as much as I can give you at this point in time. But we are going to re-examine this topic of redistricting because it is one of the elements, I believe, that has contributed to the demise of our electoral system and why we now find ourselves looking at candidates out there that in any other realm, in any other decade, would have been tossed aside, like yesterday's news. But now these people are front runners, and the people that are supporting them are just blind to any aspect of what really could happen should either one of these candidates, whether it be Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, get into the White House. It's going to be a dangerous precedent either way. Hillary Clinton, of course, she'll follow what Obama's doing because she's too dumb and stupid to do anything else. And but she has the ethics, unethical, more unethical than Barack Obama. Barack Obama is an ideologue. He's driven that way. Hillary Clinton is a power monger. Now it's about power in both heads, both of them. It's about power, but their motivation a little bit different. Hillary believes what she needs to believe to be in power. Barack Obama believes what he believes because he believes it. And there's a difference there. Now, the end result is the same. But just understand there's a difference in personalities. Hillary Clinton can't think of herself out of a paper bag. And I just dread to see what would happen if she gets in office. And you're going to get Bill Clinton back there in the policy-making position, as first lady man. Whatever. Anyway, I just thought before I finish up my topic here, because I'm going to shift it a little bit and turn it more towards the electorate itself. I'm just sitting here at the break looking through things, and James Corney, the head of the FBI, has kind of given us an indication of what's going to happen here. Many people are thinking that Hillary Clinton may be indicted, or there may be a recommendation coming down from the FBI that she be indicted sometime before the convention takes place for the Democrats, or even before the election. And James Comey comes out today and says that he's in no rush to put out anything that they've said. He's in no rush to complete this investigation before the primary season ends. So that tells me that even though the FBI may be doing their job, the FBI has somehow decided that they're not really in the business of doing anything that's going to determine an outcome in the election process. We'll see. We'll see how it all comes down the channels here. But I will offer you this. I do not believe that if there is a recommendation that she be indicted, that it's going to be based on security breaches in her email and private server. I think it's going to be corruption that we're funneling and laundering money through special interests into the Clinton Foundation, her using her position as Secretary of State to do that. I think that will be, the corruption will be what they come after with, not the security breaches. So, having said that, let me get back into this. I want to shift this whole commentary here in a little bit different direction. The idea that the argument is that the argument coming down the Supreme Court ruling is based on the idea that people need to be represented whether they're here legally or not, whether they have any rights as citizens or not. That is the ruling by Ginsburg. These people deserve representation whether they deserve it or not. If I can use a play on words there. Now, let me shift over here to the narrative that's going out there in the media, because this is what it is. The media is out there constantly telling us that people like this Evan Well, who would file a case that ends up in the Supreme Court about a one person, one vote, redrawing district lines based on voter population rather than total population, is racist and bigoted, and all the bad tags that get nailed on conservatives and Republicans, Republicans that have a tendency to vote conservative. Okay, an article comes out from Damone Linker over the week. The title of the article is "The GOP Has a Big Problem. Millions of its voters are a civically incompetent mob." See, remember I was talking about democracy. Democracy is the mob. This is the mob when it pertains to the right or anything coming from the right, even looks like it's coming from the right. The word mob is different. They use the word mob. When they're talking about their own people, they use the word democracy. When they talk about us, they talk about the mob. We're the mob, okay? Because we want to instigate and we want to initiate all these draconian policies, and we have this agenda to purify political genocide of sorts, to clean this country of anybody that's not white, Anglo-Saxon and Protestant, that kind of thing, okay? Now, Mr. Linker writes this. He says, "There's one thing you will never hear an American politician say, at least in public, after losing an election. I would have prevailed if the voters weren't so foolish, short-sighted, and stupid." But that's exactly what Democrats look at their base as. Foolish, short-sighted, and stupid. That's why they're Democrats. That's why Democrats tell them, you need me to determine what needs to be done because you're foolish, short-sighted, and stupid. And as our friend Jonathan Gruber once pointed out, which I now call the Gruber theorem, the stupidity of the American voter. But here's the point. Mr. Lincoln wants to, he alleges that the people that are voting for Donald Trump are 1, Republican, 2, Republican extremists, and 3, stupid Republican extremists. And that there's a faction of the GOP, there's a faction of the Republican Party that is dumb, stupid, short-sighted, and foolish. And that's why they're following the likes of Donald Trump. I just want to offer this one opinion here. A lot of the people that are voting for Donald Trump, most people understand a lot of these people are voting for the first time. A lot of these people have been sitting on the bench, not voting at all. He has ignited a certain demographic in this country of people that want to vote for him and have not voted for anybody else, either for a very long period of time or not at all, but they want to vote for Donald Trump. How many times have we heard of people coming into the primaries re-registering as Republicans so they can vote for Donald Trump? The independents who the Democrats lean on so much for the support for their social issues are all swinging over here, or a lot of them are swinging over to the Trump camp. Sure, there are some Republicans that are voting for Donald Trump, but the vast majority, from what I'm understanding, are people that are not Republicans, that have stepped out of the shadows, have crossed party lines for the purpose of voting for Donald Trump. But the narrative is it's got to be the Republicans. It's got to be the Republicans that are at fault for this because Republicans cling to their guns and religion and they're haters. That's basically the argument. That is the narrative. But the vast majority of people that are voting for Donald Trump are not conservatives, and they're probably not even Republicans, although there is. I know there is because I have friends that are going that way, that are Republicans and some conservatives, although I doubt they really know what conservatism is about, or they wouldn't be doing it. But my point being is this mob that they're talking about is not in the Republican Party. This mob that they're talking about are those who they would pitch the same word democracy to had they not left their constituencies and stepped over ideological, theological lines to vote for Donald Trump. The ignorance that this man speaks of, the ignorance exists in the world of the liberal pundit and columnist and blogger. See, everything is being painted as something other than what it is. Sometimes things are exactly as they really are. And what's happening here, Trump has ignited something. He has gotten that middle-of-the-road voter, whether he be Democrat or Republican, to switch sides because they're just sick and fed up of being sick and fed up. That is what we need to pay attention to. We're done for today. We'll be back tomorrow. We love you guys. I thank you so much for your loyalty and your patience with us here at the Conservative Syndicate. Visit our website, theconservativesyndicate.net. We love you. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Conservative Syndicate, the globally syndicated, politically incorrect talk show that seeks to tear down the imaginary wall of separation between church and state. We want to make you aware you can find and access all of our show archives at our website, theconservativesyndicate.net, as well as our broadcast stations and times. That's the conservativesyndicate.net. We so appreciate you taking time to tune in, and we so look forward to continuing to bring you the best and uncompromised talk radio available on the net today. And remember, folks, it doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down in life. It only matters how many times you get up. I'm John Matthews, signing off until next time, right here on the Conservative Syndicate. God bless you, and may God continue to bless America.